Or to computer. Okay. So good evening. It's October the 4th. We're kind of launched our session. So I'm Lesley Davenport, and we are coming together tonight as teachers and as practitioners of the combined modalities that we use in Spark Motion Body Studio. I am really looking forward to kind of just spending some time with everybody and then collectively as much as we can. I think it's going to be fun. Um, so something that's different about this evening is, well, something that's different about this season is I've been searching for themes through the years that tend to articulate our mission of a studio. And when we talk about health and wellness, it's always a little intimidating to me because there's so much that it encompasses. It's not a physical thing, it's not a mental thing, it's not a spiritual standalone thing. It's really it's the imperfectly perfect, right? It's kind of getting to that calm, the calm, confident acceptance love phase, right? Oh, Viviana's there. Okay, that might happen. So as I'm chatting, it'll hopefully be a pop in. Hi, Viviana. Um, so
Hello.
the
Hi. Good evening.
Hi. So we just started, so we're chatting just a minute. I'm kind of at the tail end of my introduction, and then we're going through, and Carolyn's first to go, so you get to hear a little bit, which is nice. Thank you
That's
for
great.
popping in early to listen.
Absolutely.
Um, so the theme of our year is really, and once I explain where it's coming from, I hope it makes you excited too. But our theme of our year is head and heart and hands. And the reason that it came about is that there is a style of architecture from the late 19th century and early 20th century that were considered arts and craftsmen. Arts and crafts is like a style of architecture. And the reason that our theme came together is I was in a conversation with Harold, like the background design, right? He like always looks out for our design to be done well and aesthetically pleasing and communicate our mission. And he said, "Hey, arts and crafts, do you know what that is?" I was like, "That is my favorite style of architecture. When I moved to Pittsburgh, that's the house that I wanted." Right? I had that house for like a few years in the beginning, and then we really weren't able to support that in family life long term because there's no outside space. um, but basically, the arts and craftsmanship, what drew me to make that our theme this year for Spark Motion is that it encompasses intellectual engagement, emotional fulfillment. Whoa, that's a big one, right? And skilled craftsmanship. So one of the things that I am most proud of that we offer to our community is we have the skilled craftsmanship. We've kind of had that for I think the process of that is always evolving. We're always learning. All of us are very committed students and learners. And when you take skilled craftsmanship and you put the heart behind that, the emotional fulfillment part behind that, and you really start to use your imagination to see what's possible, right? When you're engaging your mind to see what's possible, um, I just keep seeing that that's where change happens. That's where lasting change. Um, so our theme this year really is that head and heart and hands. And I don't know how long it will stay around, but it kind of says it for me. Like when I look at our teaching base, when I look at our teachers, um, and I have to make choices about who's working with clients, what are we going to offer to people, how are we going to do those services? Those are the things that are guiding me in those choices and decisions all the time. So I'm most looking forward to Lesley is a teacher now, as not as an owner. The part I'm most looking forward to in the season is that we have a little bit of something all across the board to engage people further into looking at motion as a very accessible practice that can fit their life of wherever they are in that life cycle of whatever age and stage they're in. Or if something needs to be shifted and adjusted, we have all these little solutions all over the place. And so I'm kind of excited to see what possibilities open up for us, because I can't imagine anything better than someone making their own someone's progress. Like, my favorite thing in the studio is when we progress as teachers together as a unit, in the synergy of our voices, but also the support that we're giving to our clients when that client figures out their next piece, or they try something new that's been completely intimidating before. Those are my favorite moments, hands down. I love that that comes together, and it just feels really right to me with you guys. Okay, so I'm going to pass to Carolyn.
All right.
Carolyn's going to be our next teacher to share kind of what she's looking forward to.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Lesley for her passion for what she does, for her continued study to know more, to give more to her students. Well, you guys know the studio is so beautiful with so many options to give people with the Pilates, the gyrotonics, and then I forget what that new machine is that's got the bars and
The JSB. Yeah, the playground equipment. Yeah.
yeah,
Adult
that's
adult playground equipment. Yeah.
right, right. So yeah, so thank you. And um, besides being a beautiful person and soul, she is so willing to be open to hear new things. Although Lesley and I go back a long ways with exchanges for a while. And so I'm looking forward to sharing Alexander's principles with everybody and to help them enhance their workouts, their wonderful workouts that they have now already at the studio, both the teachers and the students, to enhance their knowledge of how they're moving, not just in the studio, but to take that out into their daily life. And how is it that I respond to the stimulus of life in every single moment, so that you're living mindfully? People will meditate, or they'll do yoga, or you'll go to your Pilates and you're really mindful, you're really in the moment, you're really sensing yourself kinesthetically. Then you leave the studio, or hold yourself up and keep what you had. And so my goal is to help not only in those workouts to enhance them, to give people accurate anatomical information, so they know how they're designed to move and move well. And what we do is we interfere with that design by unconsciously taking on patterns of tension that are destructive. And that could come from surgeries, um, heartbreak, emotional trauma, abuse. It could come from just watching, parents or teachers that haven't been so good with their use, and you take that on unconsciously. So there's many reasons why those unconscious habits develop. So what my job is to use my hands and to share anatomical information to help a person release their pattern of tension, their destructive pattern of tension. And then I can so gently guide that person out of those imbalances and have them kinesthetically begin to feel what it would feel like if they were totally supported from the ground up through their bones, so that their muscles can work in a really balanced way, front side, back side, right side, left side. And then you usually people feel a lighter sense of being because our habits will weigh us down. We think, oh, let me relax my shoulders. So they go down and they're heavy, the arms are heavy, and they're pulling on the neck and they say, oh, my neck is tight, but it's because it's overstretched, that they don't realize that it's overstretched. So they think they're up here because they feel tension, but it's an overstretch. So they're feeling the tension from an overstretch. So then they try to push them down more, just exacerbates from there. So my goal is to introduce the profoundly significant principles of Alexander's work, which is to recognize your force of habit, to inhibit that force of habit, just stop doing it, redirect to a more constructive way of being, and then the third principle is recognition of multisensory awareness. So that's really key. Alexander used mirrors to watch himself speak. The Shakespearean actor that kept losing his voice during performances and was looking at having to give up his career as an actor. So he had to rely on mirrors because he kinesthetically could not feel himself correctly. So what he thought was upright was actually behind himself. So he had tightened his back and pulled his head back like that. And so he had to figure out that he had to release that pattern of tension in his neck and then unravel the whole, he figured out his patterns all the way down to his feet. He was gripping the floor with his feet. And so when he would change that, he would feel like he was wrong, because let me just give an example. If he's like this and he thinks this is upright, then when you release from that and you really centered over the lumbar spine, where it's the most supportive part of the spine, then he thought he was like this. So that's what happens with people. They say, well, aren't I like a monkey, So anyway, so that's the third principle. And the fourth principle is giving yourself constructive directions to come out of those destructive habits. And they will be different for everybody, different times in your life, in different activities. And then those directions that you give yourself need to help you have what he called the primary control, the head that Lesley was talking about, the neck, which is the bridge between your head and your heart, and then would flow through the rest of his body. So that head, neck, torso relationship, he needed to not interfere with in any way by either pulling back or crunching down. And so then you restore that, you cooperate with the primary control, and then you go about peeling a carrot, vacuuming a rug, getting in and out of a chair, playing the violin, riding a horse, golfing, swimming, workouts. And your workouts are going to be better because you're working in a very efficient way. You're only using exactly what needs to be used and no more. And the rest of you is relaxed. So you can, so I'm hoping that and I've seen it in many years teaching, people's pain turns into comfort and ease. Their fatigue turns into useful energy. Their anxiety turns into peace and confidence. And so I want to bring that to everybody at the studio, and I want it to be fun. I want people to feel like they can explore the information they get each lesson and go home and be curious about it. Say, wonder how I do this. I wonder if my neck is tightening when I reach for something on the shelf. I couldn't do anything without my neck tight when I first started. Everything. Tie a shoe, my neck was tight. Reach for the cereal box, my neck was tight. And when that compresses your head on top of your spine, and that compresses every single joint in your body, messes up your organs, messes up your life. And so I want it to be fun and just have it in the delightful atmosphere of Lesley's studio and enjoy their life more and age gracefully and healthfully and happily.
All right, that's a pretty big mission, Carolyn. I think we're gonna do our best. I like the enjoy their life more for sure. So much in there.
Right, right. And then just sticking with the head, the heart, and the hands, then when you are totally mindful of yourself 100%, it's not 50-50, you and then the other person 50-50 or 80-90, 100% yourself, sensing yourself, then you can give 100% of yourself to that other person. So it's 200%. So, so I'm thinking about giving with the hands, just
Hmm.
giving.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what there's, I guess something that's true in my life right now, but I hear it echoing in our teachers also too, is the work that's provided for us, right? There's the work that you're billed, but then there's all this other types of work that's provided for you in the relationships that you have with others. And so that's a huge component for sure, right? So
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and pass over to Susan because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Because I think we're kind of guesting in. Thank you, Carolyn, so much. All
welcome.
right.
Thank you. Sit and
So
enjoy.
I'm going to introduce Susan Young. All right, Susan, what are you excited about this year?
I'm excited about a lot. So, but yeah. Boy, that was a lot, Carolyn. Like my brain is still processing. So I guess to start, should I introduce myself to you?
I think so. So name wise, so I can do that. I'll help with that. So Susan is teaching Pilates method in our studio. She has an extensive background in teaching children various subjects for
Yes.
sure at this point. And credit, different certificates for teaching youth and children. And so the Susan that I know currently, her work is divided between the physical sphere and the spiritual sphere, actually.
Yeah, that's a great.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go.
Right. I like that. That was a good intro. All right, so I am excited. I just started at Spark a year and a half ago and reconnected with Lesley. We danced together in college and met up when
Mm.
I moved back here a little after 2021. And I am excited about our collaboration for sure because we've been working on my training. So as she mentioned, I was a teacher of young children for many years, over 20 years, and I thoroughly enjoy being around little kids, and it's great. And I've taught them dance and various other different things. And I had always had an interest in Pilates. And I remember when Lesley and I were teaching together right after college, I distinctly remember her talking about Pilates training. Do you not remember? I remember this when we were teaching out in the North Hills. And I remember her saying, "Oh, I found this thing and it's called Pilates and I'm really interested in it." And I'm like, huh. And I had just had my first daughter at that point in time. And so, life was hectic. And I was like, that sounds neat to explore, but just didn't have the time to do it. And that was 25 years ago. So we've come a long way. But I've always had an interest in Pilates. I think it's one of those things, and Lesley said it in the studio numerous times lately, of like, it just feels right. Like the work works. You start working through a Pilates workout and you feel it not only in your body, it is a head, heart, body thing, and you feel it and the work works. So, that definitely piqued my interest. And moving back here, I was like, okay, I need to make this transition point because I enjoy teaching and I enjoy working with people. Adults scare me, not so much as they did a year and a half ago, but I'm better now. They're not quite so scary. But yeah, that was a big jump for me to start working with adults. So that being said, what I'm excited about this year is continuing my training with Lesley because she's actually taking on the role of being a trainer and working me through my next levels and my next steps, and which I'm perpetually grateful for. I think it's just fabulous. So, I got off to a good start with my mat training and everything, and Leslie's been working me through, the different apparatus in the studio and the equipment and everything. And so, we're just kind of plugging along with that. And I feel like, each week when we work together, I have kind of a different inspiration or a different theme that kind of I can put in my toolbox of things that I build off of. We'll work together for the week, and it inspires me to go down a certain direction. So, for instance, we had a few weeks ago talked about breath, and like breath is a huge struggle for me. I've never breathed properly. I'm a breath holder for sure. I get nervous and I'm like, and everything goes here. And I know when I'm tense because my left shoulder is up and I'm like, yeah. But and it's been interesting working with adults, working with clients is like you see similar tendencies, you see overlaps of like the average person, especially Americans, like we don't breathe well. We go through every day and it's hectic and we have our to-do list and things we need to get done. And we tend to steamroll through the day and are not quite as mindful of our bodies as we should be. Jumping off what Carolyn said, somebody will do a yoga workout in the morning, for instance, and they get all centered and they meditate and they're calm and they're really good. And then they walk out the door and life happens and everything goes right back to where it was, right? And I find that in myself too, all the time. And so the Pilates work has and Leslie's and I have conversations, it's that continual mindfulness throughout the day of like, okay, how can I incorporate my work that I do in the studio, whether it be Pilates or gyro or, whatever we do outside of the studios, like meditation and this, that, and the other thing. How can I incorporate that in my just day to day being a human? I talk to so many people like they're like, yeah, I catch myself sitting in my car like this. And after a half an hour in the car, I'm like, what am I doing? And so like it just that work with people has been so fulfilling, and it just bounces off what Lesley and I tend to work with from week to week. And so like another theme that I've been exploring, for the past couple of weeks is like our three-dimensionalness, right? So like we spent a session working together, really exploring the back body, right? And so I think, a lot of times we tend to look in the mirror and you're like, okay, here's the front of me and here I am. And you're a three-dimensional person, but the way we see ourselves is a little bit like two-dimensional, kind of like what Carolyn said, like, oh, this is straight. I have to put myself here and I have to put myself here. And okay, now I'm up straight, and kind of forgetting that we have this front and back to us. We have our whole internal, our heart, our organs, our, everything. And I loved that the neck is a connection between the head and the heart, because that's just that was a beautiful comment. I really like that. But, you know, yeah. And then
between
also kind of jumping off of what you said too, of and so I've come across this people too, and I felt it myself, especially when I first started doing the Pilates, because I grew up dancing and this, that, and the other thing. So like having my shoulders where they're supposed to be completely feels wrong. I mean, it feels better now, but as a dancer, your shoulders have to be here. They have to be down and back. And you start doing Pilates work and, well, okay, what does it really mean to relax my actual shoulder joint into this base of my back body, so just exploring those different, so it's been neat to take a theme and kind of play with it. And so I think that's what I'm excited about over the next year, is taking those themes, like perhaps like the breath or like the whole body as, a three-dimensional shape that moves through every day, and just taking those different themes and and seeing how, we could play with them, or, do a workshop or do a something or other, and just pursue those as as a client resource that is helpful, that clients can take into their everyday lives and use when they're sitting in their car, when they're walking down the street, especially when they're sitting at their office, at their desk, or, leaning over a patient or doing whatever, So
How you layer lessons. Yeah,
yeah,
how it becomes a
yes,
lesson.
yes,
Great.
yes, yeah. And so that's, the neat stuff that we've been learning about is those foundational principles and taking them and just expanding them. So yeah, I'm excited to be. I don't know if that's enough talk or if I should keep going, or what do you think about that?
I think it's good. I think we're going to get a whole, I mean, everyone's going to express, we have a very unified team for sure, but everyone expresses it in such a unique way and style. That's like really the fun part. Okay. We get to hear that for sure. I have to apologize because Kristen she was actually next and I didn't have it in front of me, but now I have it in front of me. So I'm going to ask Kristen to go because she always has really awesome dates with her husband on Friday nights. And I'm pulling her out of date night.
We have a Home Depot date tonight.
Okay.
Great date.
It still counts. It still counts. So anyway, so thank you, Kristen.
All right. Hi, everybody. If you do not know me, I am Kristen Lucandi, and I have been with the studio since 2017. And this year for me has really been heavy on continuing education, and kind of in a mix of things, a lot of it being anatomy based. So what I am still working on, since I've been working on since the beginning of this year, is an anatomy and physiology course through London College of Osteopathy. And it's an online self-paced course, and it has recorded lectures and slides and handouts for each unit. And then there's little quizzes for each unit until I work towards my final exam. So I am probably, about 3/4 of the way through this. I'm hoping to be finished by early 2025. So I've been getting through all the nitty gritty stuff of like the circulatory system and cardiovascular system and all that fun stuff. But I'm excited because I'm finally getting into the musculoskeletal system. And I just finished the first unit on the upper limb, which was really good. So that, and then I have towards the end of the year in December, I have a nerve workshop. So that's going to be my second kind of really anatomy based workshop, which I'm excited about. That's going to be in person, and it'll be when I am home in San Diego visiting for Christmas. And then I've been kind of dabbling in the world of contemporary Pilates this year. If you know me and you know my teaching, you know I am very classical, very traditional. But I've been taking different workshops, hearing kind of different voices. I've been doing a lot of workshops this year through Level Up Movement. And I've done some on brain and body balance, which is really interesting, especially for our aging clients. And I have done circuits, Pilates circuits, which is kind of interesting. I'm still trying to figure out how to incorporate that maybe into our groups. And I had a chance this year when my husband and I were in Colorado. I had stumbled upon a teacher by the name of Emmy Cole, who is very contemporary, and her brand is called Pilates Expanded because she tries to kind of expand more on the original works of Joseph Pilates. And she has a lot of background in physical therapy and just kind of a very unique perspective. So I did get a chance to work with her. And I have been working through some of her manuals that she published. And she also introduced me to a very contemporary piece of Pilates equipment that's not the original from the original designs, but it's a piece of equipment from Balance Body called Coraline. And it's kind of like the Pilates sibling of the jumping sliding board in the gyro world that you've seen in the studio. So very similar. It has two parallel tracks with little platforms that are attached to resistance bands. And then it runs perpendicular into Swedish bars. And I really, really liked the piece, and I've been taking some classes on it, and I'm considering possibly training on it next year. So that's something I'm excited about. I'm excited to kind of, integrate different voices into my classical training. And then I did just complete a workshop with my mentor, Sherry Berkowitz, in challenge relationships, and specifically like tackling how the roll up is like the mother of spinal articulation and like progressions, everything leading up to like what we would consider the most advanced progression of the roll up, like the snake on the reformer. And so very interesting perspectives about, biomechanics. And so that was really good. That was last weekend. And then just kind of like on a more personal note of personal enrichment is I have been trying to get more regular about my horseback riding. So if you don't know me, I have a very rich history in horses and love to ride dressage. And I just recently found a dressage trainer in the area, and I've been taking lessons for the last few weeks and was very, very pleased by surprise to find out that she was talking about her her style of teaching and her background of training came from a woman named Sally Swift, and she has her approach is called centered riding. And when I began to research Sally Swift, I found out that she had a scoliosis diagnosis around age 8, and as she began her training, her mentor introduced her to Alexander technique. And so a lot of her biomechanics in riding are influenced from Alexander technique. So I was very excited about that. I'm like, yes, I can integrate things that I've been learning. And I also hope to, by continuing my own practice, to also help our handful of riders that we have at the studio. So that has been my year. That's some of what I'm looking forward to going into the next year. And I think that's all.
Thank you, Kristen. You are so much busier than I ever realized sometimes.
Yes.
I mean, I know some, but maybe not the extent of it. All right, so we're gonna listen with Kelly Mraz. Kelly Mraz is like very, very everyone's. Oh, Viviana, are you
I think
next?
it was me, sorry, 7:10, because I need to go.
Okay.
Wasn't that it? Did I get the wrong schedule? I have 7:10.
Oh yeah, I put everybody in alphabetical order.
But there was
That's
a
all
time,
right.
7:10, close to my.
Yes. So Kelly, will that work for you? Yes. Okay, V, go.
Sorry, and I'm not gonna be very long.
Viviana.
Yeah.
Yes.
Viviana. I am a very close friend of Lesley, and a Pilates teacher, and I have worked with Lesley in 2016, I think. And now I have my own studio. But the reason why I'm here tonight is that I'm starting a new journey in my life, which is becoming a wellness coach. And that's very, very exciting for me. The path that has brought me to that is really actually includes many different things that happened. First, I've been working on my relationship with food. That's always been very messed up my whole life. And actually, thanks to an app, it got much, much better, to the point that I started to think, oh, these things work. Like the way that, you see food in a different way, and you nourish your body in a different way. It really worked for me. And I started to think this could work for many, many people. And I've always wanted to help people, have a nutritious, balanced diet, but I've never been able to. I've done courses in the past, but I've never felt really confident in helping anyone, really. And then I noticed how doctors, often conventional doctors, just see the body, as you all know, pieces at a time. It is great because, you know, conventional medicine solves so many things, so many problems for people, but they never look at the person as a whole. And sometimes a lot of parts are missing. And you go to a doctor because you have high blood pressure, they give you a pill, but they don't even inquire about your habits, what you do, your level of stress, and your how you eat. So these things started to make me look for something, and I found a very actually famous in this area course, which is from IIN, Integrative. Sorry, Integrative Institute for Integrative Nutrition.
Okay.
Sorry, it's dark, and my girls went out, and they said yes, and now I'm regretting it. So I'm a little. Anyway, so I'm a little. Okay, so I was hoping to share a little more about this. I'm learning. I'm just at my third module this week. So I don't have a lot to share for now, except that I'm really, starting to pay attention to how health is so multidimensional. That's one of the pillars of this course. Or at least I often think of being healthy as eating well, exercising, being in shape, but there's so much more. There's physical health, which is what I always focus on, but there's mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. Now, I've always known about mental health. I've always also worked on that. Emotional health, never really thought about it, but now I'm taking more time to think about it. All the things that you do for yourself to be happy, to nurture yourself, to nourish yourself off of your plate. So it's not just what you eat actually, but how do you nourish your body and your mind to be a happy person? Friends, relationship, self-care, all these kind of things. And the spiritual health, Lesley knows a little about me. I'm not religious, and so I never think of spiritual as really something I should think about. But it is there, and I realize how I was mentioning to Lesley how I was brought to this course and this new journey by the universe. That's what I told her. The universe brought me there. Things happened in a sequence that led me to this. So now I'm trying to figure out how to make space for nurturing my spiritual health, whatever that is. I still don't know. And so these are the things that I'm really thinking about. And now that I know the theme of your year, Lesley, it seems like perfect. Like the head, which is emotional, and the mental, the heart, which is spiritual, or they're actually interconnected, and the hands for the physical health. So it's exciting how these themes, like Carolyn was saying, or Susan was saying, everything comes together in your life, and it's not just one piece. The way you're standing, which probably is influenced by the way you're feeling, and the things you do, which are influenced by what you feel and the pain that you have or you don't have. So this is I think that Leslie's going to invite me to speak a little about these themes later on when I've learned.
November.
November,
I think.
Yeah. Right. I hope that I will. No, I would share. I mean, I know that probably for you, all of us here, we kind of understand some of this, right? We have been in the wellness and health department for a long time in one way or another. But I think that a lot of people don't have a clue about how to take care of themselves, how important it is to nurture every part of your being. And so I hope that, I can inspire someone to try something new, to take a moment. One thing that I'm doing right now is practicing a kind of breath that was taught to me in the course. There are so many different ways to center through breath, like you were mentioning. But there's this kind of breath where you inhale for 4 counts, sorry. You hold your breath for 7 counts, and you breathe out through your mouth for 8 counts. And you repeat this 4 times. And it's supposed to help you relax and calm and feel more centered. So I'm doing this. I've had such a stressful month because of work, and I've used this breath now and then. And yeah, that's one of the little tools that I'm learning now that I'm just at the beginning of my journey. So yeah, this is what I think I wanted to share with you tonight.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
She touched on it. And so before I introduce our next guest, the part that I kind of want to sneak in between speakers a little bit is how integral every one of you are to this vision. I've known for the longest time ever that I definitely, even though I can run lessons and teach, I'm always happy to work independently because I'm pretty much in my own world in my head sometimes, for sure, easily. Everyone that knows me knows that. I'm just like someplace else. But the way that Spark really does its thing for clients is through the synergistic efforts, through all these different practices. That's how we ignite someone's spark, for them to want to know more, or for them to want more for themselves sometimes. And I think frequently it's to have the support needed that they can expand themselves in ways that they never thought was possible. You know, perhaps there was an idea from something long ago, but for some reason, something is unattainable in that moment, you know, or where they find themselves. So that really comes out, I think, with our staff. Okay, so
And
sorry.
I
Thank
apologize,
you.
but I need to leave.
Yep,
But thank you for including me in this
no
meeting.
apology needed.
Thank you,
No
everybody.
apology needed. Bye.
Bye.
So I'll turn over to Kelly. So ladies, this Kelly Mraz is a really fantastic guest teacher with us because she is part of the Spark family that's always kind of a little bit in the background. Something that was really, if I don't mind, if I can share with Kelly, something that really kind of proved our relationship in collaboration is Carolyn had said through the years and distance, Kelly worked with me right before COVID came. And then during COVID, she basically like made it through. She kept finding different ways to take what she was experiencing and make shifts in her movement and health directions that were going to support her, like, super, super hungry for knowledge as a student, but her family needs. You know, this is not working now. I need to make a change. I don't know what that looks like. I'm going to try this. Right. So I'm like always really proud of her for that, because we all have times where you can't keep going the same direction that you're going. You have to make a shift for whatever reason that is. And Kelly was somebody that I got to be part of her transition to the other side, sometimes a little bit. All right. So Kelly, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. I miss teaching regularly. I'm missing it more and more these days. When Susan was talking about needing to sit up tall, I was like, well, I need that lesson from 3 to 5 p.m. every day, because I'm like this. Even if I'm standing, I'm tired of being at work. So anyway, I work full-time now at a research lab. I'm a program manager. I started teaching Pilates and like a hit kind of blend of fitness back in 2016, I think. And then I think it was maybe 2019 also that I started with Spark when it was Pilates Center Pittsburgh. And continued to teach virtually, and then came back to the studio as I was starting a master's program in sports medicine. And now I'm, full-time doing that. But I'm excited to bring something on February 7th. So I will be in studio for that, to give a guest class. And I guess I'm excited about a lot of things. I am always constantly looking for, okay, like how can I support myself or the people around me? Like, what is that next level? So I think in terms of supporting the people at Spark, what I am excited to offer is probably something that would speak to athletes. I've really tried to continue my own journey of just being athletic, you know, and continuing to move. Definitely perimenopausal right now, so that brings a whole host of new things that I'm experiencing that it's just different, you know, it's the aging process and it's cool. There's a lot of physiology there that I'm learning about. And I love that. And I think that, you know, athletes at different stages of their lives need different things. You know, my son is 14. He needs very different things than I need. And then in my last marathon, I was passed by a 74-year-old woman at mile 23. And I was like, oh my God, like you're amazing. You know, so they're just the range of athletes, you know, it depends on what you need, what your sport is, what your gender is, what your goals are, what your age is. There's just all these different pieces. And athletes are always pushing themselves so hard that they are like one breath away from too much. And I find that this work in particular really keeps you safe. It is just so healthy to slow down, to be mindful with your movement. I reconnected with Pilates a little bit myself in the beginning of the summer because my husband took my kids to California for a painting job. So they weren't around. So I was able to kind of dive back into my own personal practice, and it just really reminded me how critically important it is to do that kind of work. I ended up bringing my son to a yoga class last Sunday, and he's just like bursting with energy. And after the class, he was like, that was amazing. Like, when can we go back? And I think it just offers something very different to what athletes are trying to do. They're always going so hard all the time, which is great, you know, but if you want to have longevity, if you love your sport, if you're doing your sport for the love of your sport, you hope to be doing it most of your life, you know? And if you burn out when you're 20 from stress fractures, from tears, just from overdoing it, you might not be able to do that sport for your life, you know? And so like, I love my sport. I'm a runner. I hope I can run for a long time. And I think I'm just looking forward to continuing to support people who want to move throughout the whole lifespan and just deal with the challenges that life gives them, which, you know, sometimes it's within your own body, sometimes it's life stress, you know, it's your parents, it's your kids, it's your best friends, it's like the inflation, right? But I hope to be able to just continue to bring a practice and classes that will support just athletes, I think, of every age. So I think that's it. That's like the big stuff for me.
Tell them are you ready to announce your like big project in the spring? Are you going to talk about that?
Oh, for Pilates Center Pittsburgh or for Spark?
No, for you.
For me, my big project
For running. What are you going to run in the spring?
Yeah, did I tell you?
Yes, you did.
Okay. I have to get in still, but I want to run the Boston Marathon for charity. And so that's my hope. I am not fast enough to qualify. Those are really fast people that get into that marathon. But I'm really good at fundraising. So that's right. Because I was telling you I wanted to, so I would love to offer some classes for donation, you know, and I would love to offer just, you know, making sure that the studio gets what it needs from people to come into the classes, but then anything on top of that goes to me would just go to a charity. So I am looking through the charities right now. They have to announce them. And then I think I have to be interviewed by the charities and chosen because the race is just that popular. So if they choose me, then I will be doing that in the spring. I will be offering some classes and hoping to raise money in that way, it's a really cool way to run the Boston Marathon. It's how I ran my first marathon too. I fundraised for St. Jude. It was a really, really special experience. So thank you. I forgot about that I had shared that with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kelly. No, she always makes me want to run, and I like know running isn't really my favorite sport, but I always enjoy it when I do it. I always feel motivated to like have a more fun, to be bouncier. You're very bouncy. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Haley to everybody. Dr. Haley.
Just trying to unmute myself. Hi, everyone. I've met some of you, not everyone. I'm a chiropractor. My practice is in Pittsburgh, in the neighborhood of Greenfield. But I got started getting involved with Lesley actually through Viviana. I knew Viviana, and then she introduced me to Lesley because you do your Friday chats, and just like the connections. Even listening to all of you guys talk, there's so many congruencies between what we're all talking about and the point of kind of our work and just bringing balance into people's bodies. So Viviana knew me through chiropractic because I was working out of her studio initially when I started my business here in Pittsburgh. And so I started working with Lesley and just sharing what I have to offer, helping clients in honestly a lot of different ways. But this year, what I'm really excited about is like the talk that I'm going to be doing in December. I had decided to do it basically on how we can continue to do different things to help our body be able to bounce back from stress. And that idea came from being able to reflect on the past couple of years of being in my own practice here in Pittsburgh and seeing so many just like really cool changes in so many people, but from different realms, right? But it kind of all comes back to this bigger idea of stress and responding to stress, and knowing that one, stress is not all bad. There are good stresses. Exercise is stress, right? Not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Some stressors are bad. Chronic stress, not great. So really it's looking at like, okay, if there is chronic stress, or even if it's not chronic stress, but someone, me, you, my patients, our clients, like is having a stressor and not being able to come back from it, right? That is when we either are having these like mental and emotional challenges that can also show up physically in the body. And that's usually where I'll see, also, I don't know if you can see me right now. I'm getting a phone call, so hopefully you can still hear me at least. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like think chiropractic, you think body pains, right? So usually I start seeing people when they're having a body pain, but sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's not just like, oh, I literally just fell and have a physical injury from a very specific thing and I need help healing from that. Usually it's something that has come up over time and potentially even has like stress or emotional involvement, and then it's helping the body figure out like, oh, how can I like come back to baseline? So long story short, I was reflecting on this year and there was a handful of examples that got me just really excited because like there was one man in particular just talking about physical pain. Like he used to have this like cyclical low back pain that would just come back, and he used to see another chiropractor every time that he'd have that pain. He'd have to get treated for a couple of weeks. It would go away. Then he'd be fine. Then he'd come back. And it was kind of this process of like always kind of having to work really hard to get rid of this pain. Eventually it would, but it was an effort and it was painful. But so when he started seeing me, he kind of transitioned into finding what worked for him in terms of more of a wellness perspective of, okay, like I feel better now, but I see the value in like keeping that balance in the body. So he was coming in on just like regular basis. For him, it was every few weeks, even when he was feeling okay. And then it was a couple weeks ago, he actually got his pain again. So he had that like worse back pain that kind of took him down. He came in, he got another adjustment, and then it was back to normal, right? So instead of it taking that few weeks, he still got his pain. Like we live life, things happen sometimes, but he healed so much better because he had been doing things differently and got his body back in balance more, because it wasn't just like the adjustments made a big difference, but I talk with my patients about doing things that work for their bodies. Like this is not the kind of guy that I'm going to be able to very easily tell like, go do breath work. That's not him. But I am able to talk about different things that kind of connect with him more specifically, that made it so he had more tools at home that helped him even between adjustments too. And then I had one woman today from like a less body pain perspective, but she came in. I've been seeing her for a little while now and have also been doing a technique called neuro-emotional technique. So that's a chiropractic technique, but it's also just looking at trying to change the body's stress patterns, right? So if we are automatically responding in ways that aren't actually helpful for our body, but our body's doing because it had done it in the past, it knew that this worked well enough. So your body's just responding this way. So it's a very quick way to describe that technique. But in any case, I was doing like this multi-dimensional work with her, and she used to be kind of very emotionally reactive, like had a very hard time in that regard. And just this past week, she had to go down to North Carolina and was visiting a friend who has stage 4 cancer, and she was helping her with this, just basically just giving her sister a break, right? And just being with this friend. And then also, I think the dynamic between her and this friend was not necessarily healthy. There were challenges there. So she went down there and she came back and told me today, like, it was one of the hardest weeks of her life. But she came back and noticed, like, okay, there were obviously plenty of moments of stress, of getting into a fight or flight response, but she didn't get stuck in it. She wasn't like being reactive in it. She was able to take steps back. She was able to recognize the emotions she was having and start the act of like processing them, as opposed to trying to push them away or getting stuck and then saying something that she regretted later. So like that was a really cool thing to see. And I don't know. So there's all these just very different examples of basically people just finding more ease in their system. And that is just a really cool thing. And obviously, like even among us talking today, like there's so many different perspectives and ways that we can help people with this. And that's super important because everyone's different, right? Like what I used for that woman, if I tried to help that guy in that way, like when it worked, right? And vice versa. Everybody needs different tools. So I'm really excited to be talking more about like a collection of tools to help us for either ourselves or even like as you guys, you're working with people to be able to use them with the people that you're working with to help their bodies have that ability to bounce back from stress. Like the fancier term for that is heart rate variability, right? Like we want to respond to a stress and then we want to come back down to our baseline and be able to go on with normal life. Like that, having that positive heart rate variability is normal. It's healthy. It's what we should have. But, and our bodies are supposed to be able to respond to stress. It's supposed to be able to heal. Like we shouldn't need to like have any outside input really in a perfect world. But the thing is we also have a finite amount of energy to do everything that our system needs to do. So if there are injuries, if there's chronic stress, if there's food that we're eating that is not good for us, if there's chronic illness, if there's all these things, it brings us to this threshold of our body being like, okay, well, I'm going to still try and handle this stuff, but I'm failing at this, this, and this. And then we end up with symptoms, you know? So it's just looking at like, okay, how can we help our body get back to being able to respond to the stress and feel good later, right? So I'm really excited about just how over the years, I've just kind of collected these lots of different perspectives to kind of help those things and share that with everybody in December.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question just because I'm like kind of picking up a little theme too? When you refer to body, are you referring to person? Are you referring to body? I just have to ask that. You know what I mean?
Can you rephrase your question just so I make sure I understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're speaking, you're referring to body, physical, but the way you're explaining the application of the work goes on so many different layers of that. I'm not sure if you mean physical body or if you mean whole person. I kind of, from knowing you, I feel like you mean whole person.
Right. For me, like I do break it down into those parts because for me, I've had this, I can't remember who I was talking to, but everything is connected and we are a whole person and one thing affects the other, right? So like even helping this emotional or mental side of things is going to help your physical body as well. So sometimes when I use those terms, I am like speaking, oh, you have pain in your physical body. So I'm talking like about that as a piece, but they all affect each other, and helping your physical body is also going to be like, it all helps the whole body as a person. So I probably could be a little bit more mindful about like using the word body or like specifying there, but in general, I'm speaking about the whole thing, because then that's the cool thing about like, oh, okay, so this man, for example, like that example, like especially from his perspective, to be honest, is very specifically body, like his physical body. But the reason that he was able to bounce back from that physical pain so quickly was about much more than just his physical body. but meeting him where he's at, using the words that like make sense to him, made it so that we could get there. So
Yeah.
the
Okay.
answer is like, I'm looking at the whole picture, but I do try and like meet everybody individually with what is going to make the most sense to them.
Yes. Yes. I get that. Yeah. Just popped in my brain. That's all.
Yeah. No, yeah. If other people
Cool. So,
question,
so
I'm happy-
Dr. Haley's visit in her talk is going to be the first Friday of December, right?
Mhm. Yes,
December? Okay. Viviana is November for sure
Yeah.
for hers. And yeah, okay. All right. So guys, I'm going to introduce Sarah Zielinski. All right, Sarah.
All right, yeah. Um, so I guess do I talk about what I'm excited about for this year, or do I give background or
You don't need to, yeah, okay. So basically the nutshell is what you're really looking forward to in this season. And anything that feels like it's a really clear direction that's just kind of pulling you further in. Like I hear those pieces from usually listening to everybody work around me, you know, and different things that, you know, for example, it might be like Dr. Haley was sharing is I have a couple clients that I'm like, I can't wait till I see you again because it's hard to step away from the lesson because I'm just so in it, right? I just kind of keep going with that. So it's good to have time actually tell me I have to stop because it'll be way too much. And then I need to like rest and then let's do that again tomorrow, right? Or something like that. So those people do exist in our week, in our life. But okay. So yes. So this season, what is kind of jazzing you right now?
Okay, well, I guess I will start off just by saying how wonderful it's been to listen to all of you for sure, and just so many like-minded people. And I guess the theme that has been very much kind of sparking or exciting me this year is this has been the first full year that I switched over to being a Pilates instructor, a gyrotonic instructor, and a massage therapist, actually. I was doing full-time dancing for a bit, and then I was kind of adding on these interests on the side, and they would fuel me in very much a learning way, working with other bodies way. But what has been really exciting is this has been the first year that I've got to work with so many people. And I guess that is the theme, even like Dr. Haley had mentioned as like a little piggybacking off of, is to see what people respond to and what their nervous system responds to. And kind of being a detective and figuring out like, oh, if something doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'm going to try something different instead of just beating like, put your shoulders down, you know, like Carolyn was saying. Um, and so, not that I would ever do that, but yeah, so it's been really exciting. And this past year, I have done some more certifications with the gyrotonic system specifically. And I went pretty deep into it this year, um, along with some more myofascial workshops. And it's incredible to, I guess I'll talk about the gyrotonic. It's a lot of standing work in this kind of level two progression. And to see some of that work translate into a lot of athletes, like Kelly was saying, or just every human being that is trying to keep their balance in, you know, beyond age when that gets a little bit more of a difficulty. And so bringing back some of this work and seeing how postures and then seeing how they naturally are standing at that point, and then using some of the systems to give using some of the pulleys and the weights of the equipment to give their system feedback, and then taking that away and seeing then how their system is responding after that. So that's been pretty cool. And as a massage therapist, I've been, you know, working on some more people, and with the myofascial, it's always so incredibly humbling because the particular work that I have been studying is the John Barnes technique. And he was a physical therapist, and he talks a lot about the electropiezo phenomenon in kind of the fascial system in the cells, and how applying that mechanical pressure. And recently, in more of the fascial conventions that people go to, they have said that you have to, apply pressure and taking out slack, and clinically have to be held for 5 minutes in order for the fascia to respond, and kind of do its own little dance and unwinding of some restrictions, whether that is a micro trauma of twisting some certain way for work or for athlete, or whether that is a larger T trauma of something more emotional or circumstantial. But with the myofascial, kind of, it's very subtle, and so it's interesting to see how some people are more they're more quicker to kind of listen into that subtlety, and then for some it's very, very, very foreign. Um, but and also, I will say with that, a little bit of an observation is everybody's systems are different, and there are different techniques to, as entry points. So it's kind of like listening to the person and what they're bringing in, either through their verbal history, or, through observing their movement patterns, or just kind of observing on different levels with that. But anyway, so all of that little swirliness to say is I've just been excited to train a little bit more of my hands, my movement technique, my refined vision on what patterns I'm seeing. And I get to work with, some of the Pittsburgh ballet dancers, and they're very, very refined movers, and we get super nitty gritty. And then there are people who, they just want to be able to pick up their kids. And so how do I adjust this material in the Pilates or gyrotonic world, and, help attain their goals? And so it's been really, really exciting to just be able to work with so many people, and I'm honored that they trust me, and that I find joy whenever they find joy in the movement of it. And I think I'll kind of end on a little bit of recently at one of my trainings, one of the master trainers for gyrotonic was talking about the person who kind of created the system, Julia Horvath. And he had mentioned how, we want to have this full range and full expression of movement, but at 70% effort. And I took that nugget, and I've been holding it close to my heart recently, as a recovering overachiever and recovering perfectionist. And because it's like that 70%, it's not being lazy, it's not anything of that sort, but it has just allowed for so many subtleties to really open up, and pathways to open up. And it's exciting to feel your body as it age become even more supple and even more stronger, because you're able to then bring on some of those little stressors. So yeah, I guess I'm just excited because I've have felt change in my body, using different tools at different times that are necessary, and still having setbacks, but feeling the resiliency, as Dr. Haley was saying, with that, and with help of many other practitioners and other senses. And so I guess I'm excited and honored to be part of this craft, and to be part of this forever learning. But yeah, that's a little bit of my excitement for this Sparkle year.
I think that you like the word. Definitely. I think I think Dr. Haley and Susan, you guys were probably meeting me at the tail end of going from such a very like Pilates perspective robust, which I really do love it. And it's always been a staple for me because I feel like it's effective. Nothing really does what that system does. You know, it just does a good job. It does a good job with what it has. And so the transformation into spark motion really is that this, you know, Sarah's words always pick up a little bit. I could go with that. That was many car conversations. Do you remember driving to Cleveland? And we talked about it for I feel like it was a discussion over 2 years for me to figure out what the heck to call us. It was a long time coming. What am I going to call us? And here we have it finally. Well, I am have a lot of mixed emotions about the season because I am humbled by everyone's trust in me for sure. But we've also gotten to a new level of organization this year, and things seem even more organized. And every single season we go through, it gets a little bit more refined and a little more clear and a little more efficient. So this year feels really good to me already because we are doing some robust projects and things that I see just are incredible opportunities for people. So I hope the purpose of this evening is really to expose to our clients and our community that we work with really what the resources are that we have for them to hear a little bit about. We always work with one teacher a little more, or sometimes one and two teachers, but for them to really hear from everybody about the pieces and parts we're bringing together, that's really, really amazing. Like that's my hands down favorite thing as a business owner. You guys are the reason that I do that, you know, because that's what makes it feel so lively, right? The like diversity in all the mix of that. I just absolutely love it. It's the big family part of me for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you for sharing. You got it. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you guys too, just to see eyes on each other a little bit, because that's definitely a challenge, you know? Thank you so much for sharing part of your Friday night with me. And thank you. I will see every one of you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, good night.
Bye.